today's podcast is all about living your ideal life and the risk it takes to get there for some people. So I want to start us off just with a little quote and then a statistic that I found. So there's a psychologist named Tom Gilovich, and a former Cornell graduate student found people are haunted more by regrets about failing to fulfill their hopes, goals, and aspirations than by regrets about failing to fulfill their duties, obligations, and responsibilities. And these guys surveyed hundreds of participants through the course of 6 studies and concluded that 76% of them were regretful of their decision not to fulfill their, quote, ideal self and take more risk to chase their dreams.
Wow.
Yeah.
Question, though. I don't know how deeply you read into this, but did they also not fulfill their duties and the things that they felt they were obligated to do? And so you know that they had regrets on both sides, but they regretted the not risk taking more? Or did they all do well with their obligations and duties, and we'll never know what it would have been if it were flipped?
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that of the hundreds of participants, that's probably a few, people
Sure.
that maybe felt that way, or maybe, I guess didn't fulfill their obligations or duties.
Yeah, basically, I just pick losers, total
Yeah.
losers.
Yeah, then it's both.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think about that, Elias?
I mean, I think that's just common, and it's unfortunate for sure. And I think that's why the outliers are the ones that, build things and start things and stick with them. And I think that there's a direct correlation between happiness and having like big goals. And I don't really necessarily think going to work every day is a big goal or just fulfilling obligation. I feel like that's kind of just something you have to do as a baseline human being. But if you're like, I'm going to be the best at doing what I do, waking up every day, I think finding deeper meaning and a deeper purpose can even be something that an outlier can do, and that can create a lot of happiness and confidence in one's life. But yeah, I mean, I'm not super surprised at this statistic. I think it makes sense. I think we get in these habits and mundane routines where there's not a lot that we're passionate about, and we start to forget what we were even passionate about in the beginning. And we've seen it from a lot of people in our lives, friends and family, that have in some ways or another given up on a dream. And yeah, I think that's always going to affect how happy they are in their life. And also, you think about people that sort of live in their big moments, like, the person who never talks about or never stops talking about
Uncle Rico.
Yeah.
Uncle Rico. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's because people want to attach themselves to any greatness that they may have accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
When you totally have everything it takes to continue to accomplish great things, but it does take a lot of risk, and I think most people aren't willing to take those risks.
Yeah. That can kind of lead us to a pretty deep topic as well, just, in the sense of do you need to continue to create great things or have great achievements, or, what really matters. But, I want to talk about just the risk a little more, and how it's kind of a broad definition. Like there's calculated risk, and then there's things that are just reckless.
Yeah.
And what kind of separates the two, between someone who's like, yeah, no, I took a risk, but from the outside, we can all look at that and be like, no, that was reckless and stupid, rather than I made sure I, crossed my T's and dotted my I's before I did this, and it either worked out or it didn't. So what's the difference between, calculated risks and recklessness?
I think it just comes down to due diligence, So if you are going to do something and it's going to be risky no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Take, for instance, Alex Honnold, free soloing El Capitan.
Yeah.
The movie Free Solo. He didn't just one day wake up and say, I'm going to free solo El Capitan and get a camera crew and go do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like he went and did that route over and over and over, worked some sections over and over and over. So it was still incredibly risky.
Yeah.
And some people would say it was reckless. I think reckless would be lack of preparation, lack of due diligence, but he didn't do that. And, he still could have died easily. He knew that. But he did the due diligence that he had to do to mitigate risk as much as possible. So I think taking risk in life is great. I think we should be taking risks, but at the same time, put in the preparation, put in the thought, and going onto the mats. I mean, all of our students here, going and doing your first IBJJF tournament or first jiu-jitsu tournament. They've prepared. You guys have coached them, and you've done as much as you can to prepare them. But there's still risk. Yeah. There's a lot of risk. You can go out and feel like you're embarrassed or hurt yourself, or like Austin, poor guy, wins his first match, but then breaks a rib while he's guillotining a guy. So, you can't account for that. But I just think it's the preparation. That's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree. I think it's sort of the moral compass before the risk as well. Like, does this risk affect people in a negative way? You could have every intention of like doing the right thing, making like a big bet, like, oh, I've done the research, I've done everything I can. And then you bet way too much money on something,
it ruins your family for 4 generations.
Yeah. But so I think there has to be, a consultation with yourself about your choices and whether your risk, the risk that you're going to take, your journey that you're going to embark on is going to affect people in a positive way or a negative way. And you hope that in doing so, you're actually affecting people positively and inspiring them and bringing good into the world.
How often do you think people are able to have that sort of calm inner dialogue, as opposed to people that are like more likely to get a thought that could be a reckless thought and just act on it and not like really think about it and be like, this could put me in a bad spot, I should probably not do it. Do you think it's more or less the latter?
I think it depends on the person. I think that people always can think it through. I don't think they always do think it through. The more analytical, logically thinking people that take risks, those are, the classical calculated risks, right? They put the thought process into it. They weigh the consequences. They do basically like a SWOT analysis you would do with business, right? Where they just look at it from all angles before they do it. And then there's the emotionally driven people that are just like, man, that would be cool. I'd look like a rock star if I did that thing. Those are the kids that you hear about dying from trying to take the biggest cliff jump, on Instagram because they didn't think it through.
Yeah.
They're like, this was super risky. They end up dying for it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, like from an emotional standpoint, people just let that get the best of them.
Yeah.
As opposed to like actually thinking deeply about the consequences of what could happen based on your actions or what you choose to do.
But that's dangerous because you can just sit around and live in fear if you overthink everything and then you never take action. You could just be frozen paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think having the right people around you, the right mentors and friends will help you make the right risks. I just think you have to have a level of wisdom and acquired knowledge over the years and have had mistakes made and learn from those mistakes, but be the type of person that's going to iterate and get better every time. I think about my own journey a little bit and just fighting and fighting early and being so excited and so emotionally driven to get in the cage. And maybe just, haven't crossed the T's, dotted the I's and explored more of the fight world around us at the time to really, know what to do. Granted, I think a lot of my, early failures were, just me in my own head and not believing in myself. But I think I also needed to gain that wisdom through mistakes and through being around the right people and having the people that believed in me no matter what. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to there's so many factors at play when it comes to taking calculated risks. But I think at the end of the day, the ones who succeed in taking the risks are the ones that are willing to fail so many times.
Yeah,
and
I
just
think
still pursue whatever it is that they were taking the risk for.
Yeah. If you look at the risk that you're taking and the like worst case scenario consequences, if you're willing to accept those, like honestly willing to accept those consequences, then take the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get into our own personal choices a little later, but I also want to talk about, the potential of like privilege. Does privilege play a factor in your ability to take risks?
I think it absolutely does. I mean, I've talked to people that have escaped from, communist countries, Cuba, for instance, and there's really no risks that you can take there. Like there's no incentive to do anything because whether you're a doctor or a garbage collector, you get paid the same. There's no incentive really other than doing things specifically for the government. So, a guy whose dad was on the Olympic weightlifting team for Cuba. And before he got hurt, he lived a pretty high level life, whereas everybody else lived pretty much the same, right? Because it's a communist country. And so I just think that we're very, very blessed and fortunate to live in a country where we are afforded the opportunity to take risks and just do different things. If you don't like your job, you can quit your job, and there are other jobs. That is not the case everywhere. Yeah. Sometimes you just get what you get, and you just have to suck it up and live with it. And I don't think those people die with regrets. I think they die maybe thinking, well, that sucked. Yeah. It would have been nice to live in America or something. But yeah, we have a huge blessing that we can go after things here and we can take risks. So yeah, privilege, I think 100% plays a huge part into it.
Yeah, definitely in that standpoint when you're talking country to country. But for example, what if you take, a guy that has, let's take two MMA fighters for example. And one guy grew up in a pretty strong household, money coming through, never missed a meal, all that type of stuff. And, you take another guy in the exact opposite boat. Is it easier to take risk with a safety net, knowing I got family who will have my back, I got a place to stay, I got food on the table? Is it easier to take that risk, or is it easier to be I have nothing, I'm gonna do this because I have nothing?
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Elias?
I think in theory, it's probably a little easier to take the risk with a safety net if the people around you are saying yeah, give it a shot. I mean, if you fail, then, you'll be fine. But I think that is ultimately, that'll ultimately lead to not as much success in pursuit of the goal, because I feel like even if you come from a privileged household, I mean, you have to be guided by people that are telling you if you're going to take this risk, you better do it. You can't fail. I mean, and if you do, you have to fight back. Where on the other hand, the person that comes from nothing, they have nothing to lose. And so why not pursue it to the best of your ability? And I think that you have to talk, when you have risk, you also have reward. And so the reward is far greater for the person that has nothing. So when he wins a fight, now he's got some money in his pocket. He's like, whoa. And when you're rewarded, that's so much incentive, and that incentive is greater for the person that has nothing. So then they're like, whoa, this is insane. Like, so, you know, a kid that comes from privilege, wins his first fight, gets some money. It's like, oh, well, actually, I mean, you know, I don't actually need this money. And it's going to change the mentality. That person that won the fight that came from nothing and is like, holy shit, I have money in my pocket. This is insane. And now you have that positive reinforcement where he's like, if I train harder and keep winning, I could keep getting money. I could keep getting a better life for my family. And there's just more incentive. So, yeah. And then that makes me think it just comes down to incentives. What is your incentive if you are coming from a privileged family, or you're not coming from a life where you're not struggling, or you are struggling rather. What's your incentive? Because either way, I think coming from both sides, you can be the greatest that you could possibly be. I think they can both be at the top. I think it just comes down to, you know, what is the incentive?
Sorry, go ahead, Ty.
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think about it, and you know, from an observational standpoint, if you looked at all the top fighters in the world, well, let's just say UFC. I mean, you have more visibility there. But if you looked at all the fighters in the UFC and you took a sampling of like what their background was, I would guess that there would be a mixture of people that came from, you know, very meager beginnings to people that had affluent families that gave them a lot of support. And so what that says to me is that I don't know that it's what you have or the privilege you have that really affects your drive to be the best. I think there's something deeper, and I don't know that the incentive is money. I think that there's something about just finding a passion for something, whether it's going to make you money or not. If you're just absolutely obsessed and passionate about something, if you can find that in yourself, then, you know, that's really powerful. And I think that the people that are the greatest have found that. Yeah. For whatever reason. And I think they probably rationalize in their mind, like, this means so much to me because I have nothing else, or this means so much to me because it's the only thing I care about. You know, I have money and I have support, but I don't care about that. I care about this. Yeah. And so how do you find that passion? You know, I think that's the separator. I mean, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, to Elias's point too, I think discipline is number one, you know, for any athlete or just, you know, anyone that's working towards success. You know, if you want to be top of the class in any which field you decide to go, discipline has to be number one. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens is like you said, Elias, with someone probably raised a little more privileged or, you know, has a little more, they have more choices to make, and they could have discipline, but they could still decide like, you know, maybe this isn't for me. You know, maybe I don't want to do this. And whereas someone who's not in that position, they get that taste of a small bit of success, and they're like, this is all I have. Like, I can't do anything outside of this. This is the only way I succeed. So I am forced to stay disciplined, you know, rather than like, I'll be disciplined because I want to do it. Yeah. It's more like I have to be disciplined because I can't go back to my other life. Yeah. No, this either has to succeed or it doesn't. Yeah. And also to Ty's point, I think you probably hear more about the underdog story, about the person that came from nothing, just because it's more inspirational, it's more motivational. But I think you're probably getting a strong mix of both, of people, you know, at the highest level of a lot of athletics that, you know, either came from poverty or didn't, you know?
Yeah. Nobody really wants to hear the story about the guy who had everything and then took even more. Screw that guy.
I think to your point, Ty, it's the intrinsic value that you know is the equalizer between the two, because no matter what you come from, if you're on the mats and you're just like, the way I feel when I'm doing martial arts and pursuing this is unlike anything I've ever felt before. Yeah. And that I don't want anyone to take that from me, and I want to like see how much I can grow that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the people at the top have, regardless of what they came from.
Yeah.
They are just in pursuit of not only being the best at their sport, but being the best version of themselves, and just doing everything it takes to strengthen their, resolve and connection with whatever it is they're pursuing. Martial arts, for example, every choice that I make outside of martial arts, I think about how it's going to affect my martial arts.
Right.
Am I going to be able to train just as much as I want to the next day? Am I going to be able to compete on this date? Because that's the most important thing.
Yeah, there's a concept though on the other side. You talk about the people that come from poverty that they're like, this is all I have. There is a psychological phenomenon called learned helplessness. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but like a famous experiment where they took dogs. This is terrible. If you love dogs, you won't like this experiment, but
I love dogs.
They take dogs, they put them in a chamber with an electrified floor, and they have a partition that separates the chamber in half. One side has electrified floor, the other side doesn't, right? So initially they put him in this chamber, and on the electrified side, they give him a shock. The dog yelps, jumps over the partition, and he's safe, right? And then they raise the partition, so there's nowhere for the dog to go. And they just shock it and shock it and shock it, and it's yelping, and eventually just lays down and takes it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I know this sucks. I love dogs too, so I hate this experiment. But then they lower the partition again, and they start shocking the dog. It doesn't jump over the partition.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. The opportunity to escape the pain is there, but it doesn't. It doesn't escape the pain. And so what we find in society is that a lot of people have been beaten down by, a bad home life, by a bad situation at school. They've just seen the poverty around them, and they've fallen into this position of learned helplessness where even though the partition's down and they could escape it, there are ways to get out. They just don't take it because they feel like they just are helpless.
Mm-hmm.
They've learned that they can't ever succeed. And so I think that we romanticize people that have come from meager beginnings. Like all of them are this hungry, rocky kind of person, They're not all like that. I mean, most of us learn helplessness, and we just wallow in it for our whole lives.
Yeah, that's such a good point, man.
Yeah, man. That
because it's so
hurts.
true. I mean, like, there
Go hug your dog.
people will
yeah.
Boji, I love you.
I love you, Burger.
Yeah. I think people, man, they will just think, they'll have a crazy idea in their head where they're like, man, that would be cool to be that, but that can't be me.
Yeah.
Like, that literally can't be me. Look at me. Look at my life. Look at what I'm going through. And they just start making up all these reasons for, why they should stay in the position they're in rather than chase that thing. Because, like, anything is pretty attainable for anyone, so long as you put in the work, have the discipline, and just, go through the struggles of what that might entail. And, I think that's another big thing is I think people don't understand like what the struggles really mean to get to those point. And I often feel like struggle itself, when you're looking at these stories of these guys that came from poverty and are, soccer phenomenons that are making a bunch of money now.
Right.
You almost like romanticize the struggle of those guys, and then you're like, man, that would be fun. I would love to do that. Like, I want to go through, I want to struggle. I want to make it,
Yeah.
Do you think that's pretty common for people to feel that way and be kind of unaware of what the struggle actually is?
Yeah, I think we want to attach ourselves to the story and make ourselves the main character when really you don't know what the main character has to endure until you endure it. And then you have to decide, is this what I really want to do?
Mm-hmm.
It's the people that complain about, wanting to be rich and wealthy and be like the people that they're watching on Instagram. But it's like, okay, well, those people are making so many sacrifices you would never be willing to make.
Right.
And so do you really want to do that? Because it does come down to sacrifice, but man, that learned helplessness thing is powerful, man.
Yeah.
makes me think about just so many people that are, you know, systemically in a hard place where they can't see, you know, the greater side, and the idea of becoming anything is a struggle. And I think that's a duty of someone that does accomplish something great, is to inspire those people that feel like they don't have, you know, the world or the people around them, the things around them that would even make that possible. But I think, you know, those are the people that the ones that do achieve it should be speaking to.
Yeah.
Because I mean, realistically,
Totally.
I mean, if you're physically and mentally able, you can accomplish it. It's just a series of steps, and it's going to be hard, but it's like anything, you know, it's building Legos. It's just one little brick at a time. And then ultimately you'll build something special, but it is hard. And
Master builder.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's inspiring to think about those people that really do believe there's no way out of their current situation. And you see people do it. You see other people in the same boat that find a way out, but there's always some sort of catalyst. And,
There is,
and I think that the ones that do make it and accomplish great things can be that catalyst. When you see that person on TV, or when you listen to something they said, you're like, no, fuck it, I can do it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'm not helpless.
I hate social media so much because I'm cynical, and I look at it, and you know, if you were to take all the people that put things on like Instagram or TikTok, and you know, that where they're doing something that's cool, I feel like there's two classifications. There are, you know, like the stuff you guys put up is reaching back with your hand and trying to inspire and be that catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to get people to find a greater version of themselves and to inspire them. And I think that's actually great. And that is a great use of social media. And then you get the people that are just bragging.
Yeah.
They're just like, look how much money I have. Look how cool I am. Look at this thing I can do. And there's almost a stigma or a narrative in some of those videos of, I can do this and you never could, you know, and it's actually trying to keep everybody down. And so if we had a filter, like a inspiration filter on Instagram, where you're like, I only want to see things that inspire me. I don't want to see a bunch of bragging idiots, you know, I'd be like, that's the social media button I'll push.
Yeah.
And then I would sit and watch that all day. Cause then what would happen is, have you ever, you know how like you're scrolling, cause everybody scrolled, like, let's face it, it's so addictive.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there scrolling and you get to one video and it just gets you so inspired. You just want to run through a wall. You're like, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If you could hit that button, then you'd only scroll for maybe 5 minutes, because you would just like be so full of energy by the time you got through the third or fourth post. You're like, that's it, I'm going to go accomplish great things.
Yeah. You'd be like, gosh, I got to get off my lazy ass.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
What am I doing looking at my phone? Let's get on the mats. I'm going to go for a run.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, because, you know, I do want to go a little towards social media.
I'm curious what makes
Like-
you so curious.
Do you feel like, even though people might be like content with their work situation, their money situation, their life, that social media can guide them to feeling like more discontent with where they're at? Like, even like in a normal scenario where they're like, I'm going to work, I do this, I provide for my family, you know, and they wouldn't even think necessarily that that's a miserable thing for them. You know, they would just be like, this is awesome. And then they see all these people on social media that are bragging about the lives they have and what they've achieved and what they accomplish. And, you know, do you think that plays an effect on people's basically like misery towards what they do?
I mean, I think it can. So Supa has a sign up on her door at school with a saying that says, happiness doesn't create gratefulness. Gratefulness creates happiness. Right. And it's all perspective, right? So if you want to be happy, look around at what you have and be grateful for it. Right. And if you have that attitude of being grateful for all the great things you have in your life, and then you're going to have a feeling of contentedness. And then I think that you can then look at social media and find inspiration to say, yeah, I'm grateful and I'm happy for what I have, but I also love challenges and somebody, and like look for inspiration and find that next challenge.
Yeah.
Keep yourself engaged. I think that's healthy. I think that's okay. But yeah, if you're just sitting around like, oh man, that guy's got a better body than me, and that his car is better than mine, then yeah, I mean, that's just unhealthy. That's not good.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say this quote that I found that I told Elias the other day. And it's something along the lines of most people base their happiness on having what they want and not wanting what they have.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
That stuck with me too when you said that. I've been getting a lot of, good, bits to chew on and think about. That was one for sure. I was like, oh man, it's so true. I was even thinking about my truck, you know, because I was like, man, I want a new car, and just like thinking about it over and over. But I'm like, no, my truck is great. I'm gonna pay it off soon, and it's like it's a little older, but
Dude,
just like
having a paid off car is one of the greatest things in the world.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it, but just looking at it and already the adventures that I've had in it, I'm like, you just got to take care of this and just treat it really well and keep it, pristine, and this truck is gonna live a long, happy life.
Yeah.
I love it, buddy.
But yeah, to your point, Ty, I think like when it comes to like being happy and being grateful, yeah, it's hard when you have like so much negative influence around you all the time, especially on social media, and kind of just tying this back to what you were saying, Laird. Like, I think that there's an opportunity for you to like indulge in things like that, like playing video games or actually being on social media for a little bit. But it makes me think about this, when it comes to accomplishing your goals and whether that is conducive or not. Because like you said, Ty, like we all scroll to some capacity. Maybe Laird not so much anymore since he's been off social media, but he's
a closet scroller. Don't buy that crap.
We all scroll to some capacity, but it makes me think about, Steve Jobs and other people had this thing called like the signal to noise ratio. Are you familiar, Ty? The signal to noise ratio? Yeah. Well, it's like when accomplishing your goals or doing what you want to do for the day, it's like you have a list of things that you want to complete. The signal is the 3 things that absolutely need to be done by the end of the day or by the end of the week.
Yeah.
Everything else is noise. The top 3 things that need to be done, like when you think like this is going to be what takes me to the next level, this is going to be what's going to take our business or my training or my friendships to the next level, I need to focus on these 3 things. Those are the ones that are really like, or the people that are accomplishing those things are the ones that are really investing in, I think their long-term happiness and success, because they're not getting distracted by the noise. And I think even just taking the time to like sit down and scroll on social media, if you haven't accomplished what you need to do, that's what makes you feel like shit.
Yeah.
When I
agree.
When I have a day full of hard training, fun interaction with the community, if I sit down on my phone and scroll a little bit, it is what it is, I'm not like absorbing shitty content. I'm like you, Ty. Like I love absorbing, a good YouTube interview or something where I'm like indulging in an experience that's actually educational.
Yeah, it's a great place to learn if you use it that way. Like YouTube, social media, you can take a lot. There's a lot of influential people that know a lot of things. So yeah, I mean, if you're using it the right way, it's just that it's nearly impossible to not see the content that you don't want to see.
Well, the algorithm is so sensitive and it follows your mood.
Yeah.
If you stay on a video for an additional 2 or 3 seconds, it takes note. It's like, oh, he likes this,
Yeah.
right? If you scroll right past it, it's like, no, he's not in the mood for that.
Yeah.
And so it follows your mood. And so it's like turning on the radio. And if you're feeling a little bit down in the dumps and it just plays like sad love songs,
Yeah.
right? And you're like, oh, and then it makes you feel even worse. And then it starts playing like even sadder songs.
Yeah.
That's how it works, right? So if you only choose to spend time and linger on the things that are actually inspirational, then it's going to give you that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For me, strangely, it gives me a lot of videos about lathes. I love it. It's like
Lathes,
ASMR for
yeah.
me. Lathes. I love metal and
Yeah.
wood lathing where people make just
Oh,
insanely
man.
cool stuff.
I was into that for a while too,
Yeah.
because when we were in middle school playing so much kendama,
Yeah.
there were people who were like making their own kendamas on the lathe. I was like, this is so satisfying to watch.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I love lathes so much. That, and I get an enormous amount of jujitsu content now. It's kind of down to pretty much Chris Burns.
Yeah.
I like Chris Burns a lot. He just seems to, I mean, he's kind of sarcastic, but the stuff he says like really lines up with what you guys tell me. So it's just really common sense stuff.
Yeah.
It's not flashy.
Yeah, I think everybody gets into a deep scroll hole of Thai people building mansions out of mud.
Yeah, there is that. I've gone through that phase. Sure.
Everyone's gone through that.
Yeah.
Which-
It's like,
You
how did
know.
they build this out of mud?
I think that was debunked recently, and like they have a full camera crew and everything, and just like people helping them out.
That's so
But like,
sad. Well, now with
um,
AI, everything's fake, you know?
yeah. But I kind of want to pull it back because we were talking about, you know, how social media can maybe negative influence how people feel or the comfort of their own life, you know, how they feel about the comfort of their own life. And I just want to ask, like, do you think that most people opt for the like comfortable misery in quotes, or the over the uncertain possibility? Comfortable misery over
Yeah,
uncertain
I think the vast
possibility.
majority do. Yeah.
Yeah.
The vast majority are very risk averse.
Do you think that's societal? Because, you know, I was talking with Tina the other day and I was like really deeply thinking, and sometimes it's, you know, I think school is a great place if you are trying to figure out what you want to do, and it's educational and everyone needs to be educated, you know? And there's also a sense of discipline to it, you know, where I need to be at school at this time. I need to, you know, make sure that I'm showing up to my classes. I need to make sure that I'm getting my homework done. So it's like, it's instilling discipline, and it's, you know, giving people that ability to build that. But, you know, it's kind of wild to me that like, it almost just pushes you into like, all right, I'm going to go to school, and then, you know, I'm going to make sure that I get good grades so that I can go to college, and you know, maybe I can get a scholarship, but maybe I'm going to be in debt for a long time. And then I'm going to use college to figure out how to get my, you know, 9-to-5 job that I'm going to work for the next 50 years until I'm, you know, until I retire,
Yeah.
you know?
Or
and,
die.
And,
Or
and,
die.
and like for some people, that's great because some people actually love what they're learning to do. You know, maybe they're going to school to be an engineer or a software developer, and they actually love that. And so then when they go to work, they enjoy what they're doing. But I personally don't feel like that's the majority of people. I feel like people are trying to figure it out at school, you know, and then they end up working a job that they're like, well, I'm doing this, I'm making money. And like, it's nice to know that I'm going to get paid at the end of every month. And it's nice to know that I'm going to have a job by the end of this month and maybe by the end of this year. And I'm going to be able to continue to do so and pay for the things I like. And yeah, but like, does that seem more like people are just accepting what society has just built over time?
I think people are accepting safety. Safety is, you know, one of our biggest priorities as human beings. And I think the reason that most of us are risk averse is because there's always the outcome of failure. And failure is ultimately why, at least I believe, why we don't take the risk and do things outside of our comfort zone, because then we would have to be the ones that failed. And, you know, the ones that are most successful and have the greatest stories are the ones that failed in front of people and just kept going, because even the best in the world fail at some point, or they failed early and nobody saw it because it's just like, it was before they blew up. But yeah, I think that, the standard system of going to school, going to college, it's a safety net in a lot of ways. And yes, you can end up with a lot of debt, but at least you won't look like an idiot from, trying to go do that thing you always said you wanted to do and then you failed. But that's the thing, is you won't look like an idiot. You only look like an idiot if you talk about doing it all the time and never do it.
Yeah, be a total blowhard.
Yeah.
When Reed was younger, he, believed that he wanted to be a professional motocross racer, right? And he had this attitude like, I don't need to care about school. I just need to care about riding my dirt bike a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And so I tried to be a good guiding voice in that environment. And basically what I told him was, I said, I'll support you to, try to follow that dream. I'm happy to support you, which is crazy because motocross is like literally the most dangerous sport.
Terrifying,
so
bro.
scary.
I don't know how you did that.
It was awful.
Honestly,
That's a strong father moment.
I would tell my son, fuck no.
Yeah. But my message to him about like, how do you approach this? How do you want to do this? I said, look, it's very, very rare that you're going to be like a phenom, like a Jet Lawrence, where you're just so good that you're first season in outdoor pro motocross, you on the 450s, you have an undefeated season. You win every race. Like nobody does that. Like it's so rare. Most people are going to have to grind. And so whatever dream it is, whether it's motocross or whatever else, I think mitigating risk, not being reckless, but still following your dream is the way to go. I said, look, if you say you got a good paying job and you were still single and you had good money coming in, how many dirt bikes could you buy? How many weekends could you go to the track and race and follow your dream? You know what I mean? Like, don't just throw caution to the wind and just like dive in with no support, no plan, and like just be reckless. Follow your dreams. Definitely follow your dreams, but also, have I hate to say safety net, but have a real plan to support that dream.
Yeah. I think people don't understand, that you can support your dream. Like people just think like, oh, I only have to focus on this. Mm-hmm. No, you have to focus on that a lot. But the people that are really disciplined, they'll make sure to do it no matter what. I got a job that I work. Let's say it's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So when do I get my training in? Yeah. I get my training in at 6 a.m. I get my training in at 5:30, and I make sure that I have all that done in the morning. And then during my lunch, I'm studying. And then after lunch, I'm going to the gym and I'm staying out late, working hard or doing what people are less willing to do that because it sounds harder.
Yeah. It is harder.
It is harder. Yeah. But
it's actually realistic. You could actually do that. Whereas
you can.
If you don't give yourself the support you need to follow your dream, then you're just going to fall on your face and completely fail.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think to your point, Ty, you're kind of talking about being an emotional risk taker or an educated risk taker. And if you're an educated risk taker, you think, how can I set the foundation so that I can pursue this risk for the long term, and be able to give my all to it without struggling on the outside. And that's something that not a lot of us think about. And honestly, I feel like that's why, especially in martial arts, jiu-jitsu, MMA, you have so many people that, yes, they're willing to take the risk, but what is happening at home? What is their foundation? Because only a very, very finite percentage of people actually make it to a point where it is sustainable for the long run.
Right.
And I thought about that with jiu-jitsu when Laird and I was pursuing jiu-jitsu longer than Laird because he went back into MMA, but I was trying to pursue my dreams there, and just so many people, even the people I look up to in jiu-jitsu, I'm like, man, they have nothing.
Right.
They don't have anything to fall back on. And they would always tell you, if you want to be the best, like that's what you have to do. You have to sacrifice. You know, you can't be worried about this. You can't be worried about, you know, getting a stable job or whatever it is. You have to obsess over being the best. And then I was thinking, okay, part of that is true, yes. But is that the case for everyone? No. And we've seen that countless times with some of the best in the world. Like you said, Laird, they fucking worked their 9 to 5. They took care of their family, they paid their fucking mortgage. And when they could, they were pursuing that dream to full extent.
Yeah. And that shows even more discipline.
Yes.
That shows even more that you're willing to work for this risk.
And I think it shows less selfishness. It shows more selflessness to the people around you, because you're like, yeah, I'm going to pursue my goal to the best I can, but I also have to take care of my family and the people around me. I can't just fucking abandon ship here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just, you know, like some people don't have, going back to the privilege thing, like some people don't have the privilege to just be able to drop everything and only focus on that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot, like GSP, for example, he was a trash guy. He literally worked on the garbage truck and just, you know, picked up people's trash, loaded it up all day, every day. And I remember like an interview of him saying, I used it as like a workout. You know, I would run to the trash can as fast as I can, and then I would grab it and I would lift it up and get it in there, and you know, and
he
would use it as like
trash cans down and denting them all up. He got fired.
yeah. And then he would be in you know, TriStar, right?
Yeah.
Before and after. And now he's one of the greatest MMA fighters to ever do it. And you see examples of that all the time. It's just that, yeah, some people have the privilege to be able to not have to support themselves while chasing a dream, you know?
Well, and the other thing is, you know, you guys have opened this academy, right? And I think that, you know, people see that and they're like, oh yeah, these guys, they got really good at martial arts, and then they opened an academy and, you know, didn't really focus on education in school. And look how good they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, behind the scenes, they don't see the struggles and stuff that you have. But if you're really honest with yourself, do you think that having more formal education about finances, more formal education about economics, more formal education about business management would probably be pretty helpful right now?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
Well, because you're like, Laird, you're like, I want to focus on education, because the more educated people do well. You both of you guys are just like, let's educate ourselves.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be in a formal school setting, but point being, you know, don't just eschew school and education for your goals, because being educated, whether formally or not, can support your goals and will support your goals.
Yeah. It just support your existence as a human being.
Yeah.
I mean, I come back to that quote all the time, or not a quote, but just, you know, who suffers the most? It's the uneducated.
Yeah.
Like the uneducated are always taken advantage of. The uneducated are always, you know, looked down upon. They're always cut in front of. And yeah, man, you have to equip yourself properly, you know, for the world around you. And those who don't, they struggle, and it's hard.
Yeah.
And,
I think
it sucks.
You know, it's also important that you have mentors and people around you that can kind of like explain to you, you know, we are blessed in the sense that we had our dad and our other parents as well, that, meaning my stepmom and our mom. We don't just have a bunch of parents. But you know,
Our fourth dad.
Yeah. But you know, he believed that we could be great MMA fighters, you know, and gave everything to that. But it was never like we would get in trouble if we struggled in school. We would, you know, make sure, like, he was on us about all that stuff, but he was also made sure that we were doing our best, giving our best effort to martial arts, you know, day in and day out. And I feel like some people, you know, they use school as a time to like figure out what they want to do. And then by the time they're in college and they're ready to get a job, they're like third, fourth year, they don't know what they want to do. And I think like having guidance in kind of not just dipping your toes in the water, but actually feeling out other things in life to find what you're passionate about. Like, take the time to find what you're passionate about, or else you will end up being the person that's more, living in
Yeah.
comfortable misery than, doing what you love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not even comfortable misery. You might just
Yeah.
be living in misery.
Yeah, I remember
Or Missouri.
yeah, that's even
You
worse.
don't wanna do that.
You don't
God,
wanna do
that sounds
Yeah.
horrible. Sorry, Missourians.
Yeah. Yeah, there a quote that stuck in my head one time. I can't remember what runner it was. I was really into like marathons and did a couple triathlons, and this runner said, at some point along the way, people started to, in their lives, each person, they start to confound comfort with happiness.
Mhm.
Because when you run a marathon or an ultra marathon or something, you're going to be uncomfortable. Like it's maybe the first 15 miles, 20 miles, you feel pretty good because you're really fit, but like you hit a point where you're just miserable, right? You like your blood sugar drops and you're just like, oh, this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do that. And that's true with any challenging sport, definitely true in fighting.
Yeah.
But there's a point where you realize that you are physically miserable, but emotionally you're very happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm happy that I'm doing this. I'm happy that I'm pursuing my dreams. And so I think that's where it comes down to. People have this epiphany late in their lives when they're on their deathbed and they're like, I didn't take those risks. And I thought that I would be happy if I didn't. But now I realize that I'm less happy because I didn't. And so I think that that's the thing. Like you have to take some risks.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to be uncomfortable because comfort does not equal happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually
Amen, brother.
wanted to say one thing because we're about ready to finish up here.
Wrap
We
this
got
bad
open
boy
mic.
up. Yeah.
But to your point, how you brought up people on their deathbed, I found a story about this Australian woman named Bronnie Ware who worked 8 years in palliative care. Do you know what that is?
Palliative care?
Palliative care. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically like when someone has a terminal illness and they're gonna die.
They're
you
working
know?
in hospice.
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah. Like you're just taking care of this person. You're not focused on curing this person.
Yeah.
You're just making sure this person's like comfortable for the remainder of their life,
Mhm.
however long that might be. She worked with those people and left actually a quite stable job to do so. And in the years of working with them, as they were expected to pass, she would listen and hear their stories, and oftentimes they would talk to her about their deepest regrets. And the number one regret she heard was that people had wished they had the courage to have lived a life true to themselves. That was the number one thing that she heard.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
That's true. I feel like everybody needs to hear that.
Be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Be willing to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Do hard things. You're gonna be.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fulfilling. You're gonna be happy if you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So I think I just want to.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of Parker McCollum's quote in one of his songs. It's 5 o'clock comes slow, but the years sure fly by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
for
that's
sure.
true for a lot of people. I mean, yeah, the work week can seem long, but then next thing you know, your kids are all grown up. You have grandkids, and hopefully, you've taken some risks and
Yeah.
created some stories that you can share with those kids
Yeah.
and grandkids. Because at the end of the day, all we have are our stories, and you either have a lot to inspire and to tell, or wish you did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I got one more thing to end with for us to think about and the listeners to think about. And that's just, if you continue down the path that you're on for the next 10 years, will you be proud or resentful?